what's going to happen. Watch. All the stuff we're talking about, synthetic meat, they found the prehistoric DNA, and guys like me who just can't be wrong in a conversation, dragons will be made.
Welcome back to the Roman Roads YouTube channel. I'm Roman.
I'm Rodez.
And here's another medley.
We're going to talk about dragons.
Why are we talking about dragons now?
Because I brought them up.
Because he's brought them up.
Because they're awesome. And I understand that scientifically they've said they never existed. They don't exist now.
Scientifically? You have
Scientifically. They went to that science. Yes. Well, you think we shouldn't use science? Is that what you're trying to say?
We should use science.
So there we go. Science has yet to prove their existence. Yet.
I would say
we haven't been to Mars yet. I'm just saying we haven't even been to Mars yet.
We'll be
all the way.
soon.
The next Mars probe, the next one is actually going to be set up to look for fossilized
stuff. Dragons on Mars?
Well, fossils like bacteria and such. You know, I don't think that the atmosphere was strong enough for them to get lift, which actually would mean, also fun fact, with wings, it's considered a wyvern. Dragons were wingless, and like English mythology. But
that's what I heard in some.
The reason it's popular, yeah, you were telling me across the world, and I had heard about this too. Almost without, I'm sure you can find a bunch that don't have dragons.
Yeah, but most
North
ancient
America, South
cultures,
America, Asia's, Africa's.
Most ancient cultures had stories about dragons.
Yeah.
Now,
giant lizards.
Why?
That were aggressive towards humans, and I'd heard, and he found a scientist who was right. Was it The Instinct of Dragons?
Anthropologist David E. Jones. According to Wikipedia, he wrote a book called Instinct for Dragons, which I'm going to try to find and read because it sounds like an interesting book.
That just sounds like an awesome movie.
An Instinct for Dragons, yeah.
Now, anthropology means he studied people's cultures.
Cultures,
right?
yeah, study of cultures.
Yeah.
He said that he has a hypothesis that humans...
Means a theory. He thinks something happened.
Yes. Just like monkeys, we have inherited an instinctive reaction to snakes, large cats, and birds of prey. We're basically very afraid of these animals, and we kind of pass this fear along. And I know there's a lot of children, especially children, who are afraid of snakes, even in areas where snakes aren't that common, or poisonous snakes aren't that common. Here in Texas,
if you throw a snake at a kid, they'll totally run away.
But I know that there's the whole thing. Growing up, it was like you would fear a snake. I'd see a grass snake, and I'd be like, "Oh, the grass snake's gonna eat me."
Well, even
my daughter, my brothers and sisters, they're afraid of snakes.
Every time you throw snakes at them.
Even though we've had very little contact with poisonous snakes. There are rattlers around.
Yeah. Oh, those are bad. Look at pictures of rattler bites. Gross.
But it's the kind of thing that we're afraid of it before we even encounter the actual harm of these animals.
Another good to show instinctual fear of something, and it's fear of snakes.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of videos going around for a while of people throwing cucumbers at their cats when they're not paying attention, and they freak out. And apparently it's because of an instinctual fear of snakes, which I thought was pretty awesome. So it's not just, primates. It's also in...
it's an animal instinct, I guess
to be afraid. Say. They're that bad, man. They're that bad. Unless I guess there's the animals that just straight up eat them, and in which case it's like a bird would be eating a cucumber. Like, this is horrible. Yeah. Where was the snake I was promised? And large cats, large cats specifically, right?
Large cats.
That makes sense too.
Birds of prey.
Also, they had a wide hunting range. I know, was it saber-toothed tiger? Our ancestors did like kill and hunt, but they were also major.
Them, right?
Yeah. Which is like goes to show like we really had nothing to fear, right? We just murdered them all. And all around the world, large cats,
fear begets murder. I guess that's the one.
In India, they got a problem with tigers attacking people, and it is because they're as cities develop, they get out into their hunting grounds.
Yeah.
And large cats, almost with the exception, I think, of lions, tend to hunt solid, by themselves, and they have a really wide hunting ground. Like mountain lions, I think theirs is can be like 400 miles. Like they're really, really big.
Well, I know right here, if you go further into the hill country, there are, I think it's mountain lions and cougars that are around here. Bobcats, not cougars, that are around here.
There's a lot of cougars too.
Anyway, getting back to the dragons.
Yeah.
So this instinctive fear of snakes made people in ancient cultures kind of hypothetically create this massive lizard creature
in our imaginations, allegedly.
Yeah, that became dragon-like. I know, back in the day there was people were said that there was sea serpents and in maps, and there were sea serpents.
Oh man, look at the oarfish.
But like giant dragon-like things.
There was different animals in there. Like the first depictions of whales were actually, they looked like just other gross monsters that shot water out of its head. And then they found like, oh, okay, yeah, there's some weird ones that look like this. Narwhals that were thought to be mythical creatures for a long time. And they found them. Giant squid, they found them. You know,
but they weren't in areas where they could cause harm to people. That was the thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, they basically, like, there's the whole thing that in maps, whenever there's a phrase or the phrase "out there be monsters," that would mean it's like the end of the map. We don't know what's out there, and they would sometimes depict it with like a monster on there, and that would also be known as an area where there was a lot of shipwrecks, and there could have been natural things like maybe the ground came up too high suddenly in the water, so it would like cause shipwrecks.
But it was our kind of imagination that said, okay, it has to be some kind of creature.
And sometimes we were right.
But we weren't right about dragons.
Well, how do we know yet? We haven't looked everywhere. I'm just saying. There's another question, too.
Is this going to become an argument now?
It's not, because I'm right. It's you pretty much attacking me on facts that I've made up. All right, I understand. All right, they're probably... They existed, I know it. But my question
is... The world is round.
It is.
Ghosts aren't
Otherwise,
real.
dragons wouldn't be able to fly around it.
It existed.
Dragon's fire burns your soul, hence no ghosts. Fact. Okay, but no, on serious, I was wondering.
Well,
so this is a quick thought.
About the ghost thing, I might be wrong.
Quick thought. Yeah, you had to backtrack on that one, right? Quick thought on dragons. So recently it's becoming common understanding that dinosaurs had feathers, at least.
Yes.
Admittedly, not all of them, and I think it was like during later periods, like the Tyrannosaurus, which was actually closer in history to us than a lot of other prehistoric large animals. I think the way they measure it is that the Tyrannosaurus was closer in time to the pyramids than it was to the Stegosaurus, because that was actually a lot of eras.
Was it the Cretaceous period or something like that?
One of the, like, there's a big span of time.
Modern birds are descendants of dinosaurs. So yeah, dinosaurs were feathered. Mm-hmm. They did not roar.
Wait, they did have feathers.
They did have feathers.
Not the same way though. They think it would probably been like a lot more sporadic. Well, to be fair, we don't know yet. We're still learning a lot about that. And like the question I was going to pose. So were dragons feathered? Makes you wonder. Now those wings make more sense. You know, you think an angel's coming down for you, then hellfire. Shock for that guy.
Well, maybe, but...
so apparently they found, and tell me how, that dinosaurs did not roar.
They were looking at the way the vocal cords, or not vocal cords because they didn't speak, but
the inside the throat.
Inside the throat, how it was constructed. It seems like they wouldn't be able to let out the amount of air that would take to be a roar. Like if you take the iconic scene in Jurassic Park at the end when the T-Rex roars,
awesome.
They would more squawk like birds. They would be loud,
that was
but
my
they'd be
point.
more squawks and squeaks like birds. You know, like take how
I won't take it.
An eagle or a hawk. You know,
it does not sound like an eagle or a hawk. Listen to an eagle or a hawk make that vocalization, and it's just like it sounds. It has a very different sound to it. Whenever you think of squawk, you tend to think of a chicken. And I was like, no. Right when you start getting to like the larger birds, it sounds a lot different. You could hear the aggression in it. And the example I was using was the difference between a house cat and a lion. You know, making a vocalization. One you call a meow, one you call a roar, and it's because the intensity and the animal behind it. I think if you heard a dinosaur making a squawk, you would come up with a different name real quick. Like that doesn't sound like a bird.
Be a roar like you would hear.
It'd be something else special and terrifying.
And King Kong with those dinosaurs, roaring at the giant ape.
I'm trying to remember the dinosaurs in King Kong. Oh, there was some. Yeah, I guess they did have that little clay one. But that one also does sort of a fun fact on that. You remember in the original King Kong, and in a few of them, I think it was just the original, he fights a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay, that Tyrannosaurus Rex was standing up bipedally with its tail on the ground and kind of wrestled with him. And that was because at the time, that's how we thought Tyrannosaurus stood. And it had to do with they put the bones together wrong. And it wasn't until like a couple decades later or so that we realized like, no, they actually sort of balanced themselves on it. And I would like to hear. I would really need to hear what this dinosaur squawk would hypothetically sound like. Oh, because here's the thing.
I'm sure we can find something.
You remember on Jurassic Park, whenever and I know it was probably not factual either. Well, no, it wasn't. The Velociraptors, the noise they made. Remember, he did a 3D printing of its nasal cavity, and he blew air through it. That just had an eerie vibe to it. If you were to explain it, it just sounds like a weird flute kind of noise, which it is. But whenever it's coming from an animal that's, can eat you, which real velociraptors are the size of chickens, man, does that mean they're probably evolved from them? Like, step up, and then boom, KFC?
Probably.
Man.
Okay, I wonder what a fried
animals would sound like.
Fried raptor leg would taste like.
Delicious. Oh, would it be dark meat or light? It'd have to be dark meat.
Dark as thigh, yeah, because you're.
Yeah. And they're running too with that. Yeah, man. It'd probably be real lean, like buffalo meat, I bet.
Probably.
But lizardy? Interesting. This is why, what does it say? Frog's legs taste like chicken, right? Supposedly. Different texture. I'm curious too. Oh, well, wait. Aren't they? They're doing testing now, and I think they're starting to go into production with a synthetic meat that was grown in a lab.
Meat.
Can we do it with dinosaurs?
By next year, that should be. But where are you going to get, the whole thing with the dinosaur DNA and the blood stuff, that doesn't work.
It did, actually. There's a PBS special where there was I don't know what her job was. She was going through, like, some filters of, like, slices of fossil, which is just stone. It's shape of, it used to be bone, but minerals replaced it over time, and they did, in fact, find dinosaur DNA, and it obviously was
DNA
damaged.
Wouldn't last that.
It was fossilized.
Billions of years.
Found a way, man. Life found a way. I should have worn a button-up shirt. Should have. But yeah, life found a way. Google it. And I'm sure, like,
I will.
Now, here's the thing. I'm sure there's addendums and other things, but yeah, DNA was found present. It might have been fossilized or some other, which they're assuming they might find on Mars is probably fossilized DNA or some other way still.
Yeah, fossilized.
There are super, what is it? Those little survivor, they're like, it's a bacteria that can survive anything, Yeah, so that can survive. I'm going to say that somehow we can find either dinosaur DNA or recreate it or do something so I could hear this noise. I need to hear, and I don't want to hear it just on a computer. I want somebody to put it on some freaking Metallica freaking amps, and I need it lined up, and I want to hear it roared.
Dragons don't exist, though.
A lot of great points we made there. Lots of awesome ideas, but you might not think so. Let us know what you feel. Please like and share the videos, and you can find more on
Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and here on our YouTube channel.
Thanks, guys.